Sorry that Ron isn't here, Ron Hampton. For those of you who don't know, Ron is a former Metropolitan Police Department officer, 23 years on the force, and has been very active in national black law enforcement organizations. It would have been fantastic to get his perception and how he, you know, over his lifetime has evolved in terms of his thinking about, he's not a typical cop. Let's be frank about that. We didn't try to find a typical cop to get here to argue with these people. But so let's go on. These questions probably are somewhat overlapping now, but I'll ask them anyway and see if you've got some additional things you want to add. Treyon, you described your encounters with the MPD in a relatively tense environment in typically Ward 8, but not limited to Ward 8, I assume. And I just, wondered if you could kind of capsulize what you have learned about violence and police-community relations based on those experiences.
Thank you. What I've learned in my experiences is document everything. I've learned that when I encounter the police, that no matter how much information I know, how many laws I know, how many lawyers I can text for when they first pull me over, that I have to be able to beat them in the courtroom if anything goes wrong. And I learned that also not all officers are bad officers. I actually ran into a few good officers during my time, and I learned that I have to leverage my influence in the community, kind of be a bridge between the community and the police, right? Because a lot of times when things get heated, like the other night, I was the only person that they can call or that they can relate to that felt like they was going to hear them out and also be able to speak with MPD to kind of get things resolved. So I'm trying to be that voice for the people and also get some common ground because we got to coexist. The police got a job to do and people got to live in this community. But I just wish the MPD would hire more people that's from the area, that's sensitive, because we have a lot of new police that's coming to DC that's from the military. And I'm not anti-military. In fact, there's Veterans Day, right? Yeah. So we got to celebrate them. Any veterans in the house? Okay, I want on the camera, all right? So, and they come with a lot of military tactics, and it's not really conducive to where we're going as a community.
Have you, just to follow up just for a second with Treyon, the good cops that you have worked with, do you sense that they're under any particular kind of pressure themselves? In terms of their colleagues?
Yeah, in my experience in talking with officers, I can say they're good cops. I think that they face a lot of scrutiny from their peers, from their peer officers, because they might be trying to do the right thing, and the officers on the scene may be trying to cover things up, and I may not try to expose everything, and so in them trying to do the right thing, they get outcast. And I've seen that happen, and I've seen that happen a lot as well. One of the officers that is a good officer, he goes to my barber shop, and when I went to go get my shape up, I don't get a haircut, so I'm blocked, so I get this tightened up. So I went to go get the shape up, and he was like, man, you need to speak to Huff. I'm like, what's going on? He was like, man, he was speaking highly about you, about your work you do in the community, about how you helping out the guys. He's like, he got a lot of criticism for even mentioning your name. And he came in the barbershop saying to the guys in the barbershop about how the MPD felt towards me. And I don't know how they feel. I can tell how they feel when they see me. They feel like, they don't like me. They're just, I had to call Chief Rooms a couple of times. Sometimes they'll just follow me. Don't pull me over. Don't put the lights on. They'll just follow me and look at me, pull beside me, look at me. I'm like, what is going on here? But, I've always documented, and it's not, and I think that we have to do a better job of holding them accountable. So I'll file officer police complaints and go down there. But I also sue them. That's what I do. I take them to court. I'm in court with them right now. So you hear more about that.
Thank you. Anita, what prompted you to co-found or found the coalition that you're now, I don't know what its status is. Is it still in creation, or is it fully formed, or what?
Well, basically, when you and I already know that the homicides in the District of Columbia has escalated. And I saw, I don't know what the count is now, it was 140 last time I heard about it, but it was always in the paper. And what I noticed was what I call non-response by our community. Non-response. We all read it in the paper, we all had concern, but I didn't see anything from us going on. And when I say us, I mean all of us who are in the room. I saw that the administration was doing things. They were going out into community groups like ANCs and others, and they would present what their plan was. And the plan was basically to increase the police force, to blame what they call returning citizens, and a whole different, they had a plan. And so I kept calling people, I should have, calling people that I thought should be on the case, because my thing was women in politics, da-da-da, and violence was broader than this. So I said, this is not my leadership thing. But I kept calling people, and finally a little voice said, you have called and you called, and it's now time for you to do something. So what did I do? I called on many of your members, because I knew that I would have a kindred soul. Didn't have to keep on, talking about it. So I called people together to come to see. And it was kind of frightening in a way for me, because what I meant then, that I was taking on the office of the mayor and the chief of police. And so that was the impotence that led me to believe that all we need, and it's my slogan and maybe yours too, all you need of the forces the evil to take over is those of goodwill to do nothing. And that's how I got started. It is actively involved. We have, it's not a big coalition, but we are very dedicated, and we are very forceful, if you want to say that. And so that's basically what we're doing. We have a very simple platform, and it has two components. There are a lot of recommendations we can make, whole lot of them. Two, that the people in the neighborhoods who have a track record of working should be the first line of defense. That the police department needs to be closely examined, not only for their strengths, but also the points of concern. So I am involved in that organization. We are not a long-term organization. We said we're 6 months, and then we're going to turn it over. So that's basically, and it's called, we had a name, that we worked with, it's Coalition to End Violence Sometimes it's the Coalition to Reduce Violence. Sometimes it's the Coalition to get some things done. But we're very dedicated, so that's how we came about.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I want to move on to the question 5 on my list that I gave you, or that you got from us, and get your reaction to a couple of proposals that have been made to deal with the issue of crime and the justice system in Washington. One of them is Mayor Bowser's legislation, and the other comes from Councilmember McDuffie. And I just wondered if each of you could comment on the two pieces of legislation and see, how you feel about them and where you think they're going to go.
Now, with respect to the mayor's legislation, just make sure that we're talking about the same thing. The mayor has made several proposals. Her most recent is the amendment to the criminal justice code. And basically her assumption is that there are people who are violent people in the District of Columbia. Many of them have a record of violent offenses, and they are the people who are largely responsible for the 140 cases in the District of Columbia. In order to arrive at her very conclusion, they have arrested 40 people for the 140 crimes. Now, it may be a little, it may be fun, not right on, but at the time, 140. Of the 40, 22 have previous records of violent crimes. But her whole approach is based on that assumption. Now, we're not saying that we ever would support people who have been violently crimes against individuals. Now, if those of you who know me know that I try to talk as openly as I can. And so please do not take any personal offense. I believe that the mayor is doing this largely to placate the white community. Now, she believes that if she can label somebody, particularly people who have the image of being criminals, that she will be viewed as, hard on crime. I don't know where in the world she could come up with a conclusion based on 22 individuals. When I had a sidebar conversation, I just could not understand. One of the other provisions in her legislation is that if you commit a crime on a metro, you have a higher penalty than if you commit a crime on a recreation or out on the street. Why do some of us think she put that there? And you have to pardon me again for being very personal. An African-American male, they say he was using drugs, had the nerve to attack a white person on the metro. And therefore, the whole legislation is designed to that. Now, not that we don't believe that people should be safe on the metro. Now, make sure that you understand. So what we are facing, and what you are facing with me, is to make sure that there is an understanding on all of our parts, that we have a mutual concern that we want crime stopped, but we do not want the civil rights of any group of people to be violated. And so that's